waking up in a world where swastikas replace stars on flags, where freedom is a memory, and where the most powerful empire on earth is led by Adolf Hitler. This isn't a dystopian novel or a sci-fi movie. This is what could have happened if history had taken a slightly darker turn. Because victory in World War II, it was never guaranteed. In fact, in 1940, Britain stood alone against the Nazi war machine. The US hadn't entered the war yet, and France had already fallen. For a moment, Hitler stood on the edge of dominating all of Europe. And if Operation Sea Lion, the planned Nazi invasion of Britain, had succeeded, this alternate timeline might have become terrifyingly real. So, what if the Nazis had won? First, forget about the United Nations, NATO, or the European Union. They would have never existed. Instead, we'd likely see a brutal divide, the Nazi Reich in the West and the Soviet Empire in the East, locked in an endless Cold War of their own, except this one, much bloodier. Hitler's vision, the so-called 1,000-year Reich, wasn't just about ruling Germany. It was about creating a global empire based on a horrific ideology. Slavic people would be enslaved, Jews erased, entire cultures wiped out and replaced with a twisted idea of Aryan purity. In this alternate timeline, the Holocaust wouldn't be a historical atrocity, it would be an ongoing reality. Entire regions of Eastern Europe would become Nazi colonies. Poland? Gone. Ukraine? A vast slave state supplying food to the German war machine. But it gets worse. America might not have stayed free for long. Let's rewind. In our reality, Germany never developed long-range bombers capable of reaching the US, but they were working on it. A project called the America Bomber aimed to deliver nuclear weapons across the Atlantic. If they'd finished it, and if they had access to nuclear technology before the Allies' New York, Washington, D.C., and Chicago might have been reduced to ash. And yes, the Nazis were racing to develop an atomic bomb. In this nightmare world, the swastika could have flown over Manhattan. Language, education, and media, all state-controlled. Children raised to idolize Hitler. Books rewritten or burned. Resistance would have meant death or worse. And what about the United States? If the Nazis had won Europe and made peace with Japan, America would have been surrounded. Pearl Harbor may have still happened or been even more devastating. And without a strong allied Europe, the US might have been forced to negotiate with Hitler. Perhaps even split the world in a grim Cold War-style pact, a permanent dictatorship of terror. Now let's talk about technology. You might think the Nazis were backward, but they were ahead in certain areas. Jet fighters, guided missiles, early computers, even stealth technology. With more time and resources, they could have dominated the skies and space. In this world, maybe they beat America to the moon, but not to inspire mankind, to conquer it. Here's a chilling thought. What if Nazi Germany controlled the internet? Imagine a global network designed not to connect people but to watch them, track them, manipulate them. Disagree with the state? Your digital footprint becomes your death sentence. And the culture? Gone. Films, art, music, either twisted into propaganda or destroyed completely. Jazz, blues, rock and roll, all labeled degenerate and banned. Creativity choked by censorship. The only music allowed would glorify the Reich. A world without the Beatles, without Martin Luther King, without civil rights, without resistance. Now here's the real twist. Many of Hitler's plans for global domination were shockingly specific. He envisioned a Nazi Disneyland in conquered France, giant statues of himself across continents, a capital city called Germania, filled with colossal monuments meant to dwarf everything that came before. This wasn't a madman scribbling nonsense. These were real architectural blueprints, real construction projects. He thought it was destiny. But what saved us? Moments. Just moments. A misstep during the Battle of Britain, the brutal Russian winter, D-Day's success. A handful of decisions, weather shifts, code breakers, and brave people. That's what stood between our world and that one. Because history isn't inevitable. It's fragile. And sometimes, the only thing standing between freedom and darkness is a single choice. So the next time someone says, history's just the past, remember this. It's not. It's the fork in the road we didn't take. And thank whatever stars you believe in that we didn't. What do you think would happen if Hitler won?